All right, thanks, Brittany. We have a new warning right now.
You probably heard it. All our phones just blew up. So let's get over to the weather now with Jeff Barrett. What's the latest here? What was that warning?
Well, there's a reason why our phones blew up here in Tampa, and it's because the tornado warning is in effect for Tampa proper. So let me stop this animation for you, and we're going to tell you exactly where we think this tornado potentially is. It's interesting they issued a tornado warning for this because let me take a look at the storm relative velocity. Well, I got to tell you, I mean, there's a very broad circulation. There's not necessarily an indication that this is a rotation, except for the fact that the National Weather Service issued a tornado warning. So let me see exactly why they did this. Let's see if I can find the tornado warning on the chat here. New tornado warning extending into Hillsborough County, also watching an area north. Well, nevertheless, there are very strong winds with this. And if there's a tornado, it's a very broad circulation that's happening right now, and it's moving eastward as we speak. The tornado watch box extends from Pinellas Park on the east side. You are clear on the western side of Pinellas Park around Seminole. But on the eastern side of Pinellas Park, right along Gandy Boulevard, so around the racetrack gas station, which is along Gandy Boulevard, extending over the bridge, now headed towards the Salt Shack, which is located on the west side of Tampa, right near the Selman Expressway. If we can, guys, can we come back to me on camera? Because I want to try to pinpoint a couple of places on the map. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so first things first, let me query a couple of in terms of the wind. We've been querying basically the same type of winds here, which are in the 50-mile-an-hour range, but that doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how strong these winds are that are coming in with these potential spin-ups. I want to query just a couple other areas for you. 60 miles an hour. So there are some stronger winds over the bay right now. And again, that's the tornado warning that's in effect right now. It's moving towards the east. Let me put this back to reflectivity mode, which is kind of the more standard way that we look at radar. And let's go to our reflectivity there, give you an idea where it is. All right, so the storm itself is located right over the heart of Pinellas Park. The strongest winds are out ahead of it. We get these strong winds, downdrafts from the storms down to the ground. And the National Weather Service has decided to make this a tornado warning. This is going to quickly move towards the east. It's moving at 40 miles an hour, so I'm going to put a tracker on this for you, give you an idea of how long it's going to take for it to get from Pinellas Park, which is where it's located right now, across the bay into places like McDill that are under the tornado warning right now. So let me put this tracker on it, and we're going to track it at around for a little bit less than 40 miles an hour. And obviously moving so fast, Feather Sound at 4:15, Shore Acres at 4:24, Hyde Park at 4:36. So that's coming up very shortly here within the next 15 minutes or so. Downtown Tampa at 4:38, Brandon at 4:57. Again, I have to say, looking at this, radar signature, it doesn't necessarily look like there is an apparent tornado in this. Rebecca, I'm going to bring you into the conversation here because there's obviously a large aggregate of very strong winds. To me, it looks like this is more straight-lined wind type stuff. But again, as we've been talking about, it doesn't matter if the winds are 70, 80 miles an hour and it comes from a tornado or from straight line winds. It is interesting they chose to issue a tornado warning because I don't necessarily see a real tight circulation there.
It's not the classic circulation that we look for on the radar that would indicate a tornado, but regardless, people get hung up on wind damage being from a tornado, whether they're straight line winds, whether they're rotating winds. If they're 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour, they do the same amount of damage. And so what happens is the National Weather Service meteorologists are watching areas to see these higher winds. They're looking for the rotation. That's what tornado warnings are. And there was a little bit of a curvature there, but that was about it. It still looks very straight line. And so what we want you to take away from this is still a dangerous situation because the winds are so strong. We could see wind gusts that could be very damaging. Now, what's interesting about this particular warning area and where it's headed, it's about to cross the bay. And so that gives it a little bit of energy, a little bit less friction. And so we may see the circulation tighten up a little bit as it is briefly over water instead of land. And that could mean it would be slightly more intense as it headed towards the West Shore area and the South Tampa area. And so that's something we'll be watching for as that area of very high winds and possible rotation makes its way over the bay. But just like Jeff said, it does not give us that classic signature that we look for. We're looking for disruptions in the line. We're looking for curvatures. We're looking for reds and greens meeting each other and an interruption in that more uniform line of red meeting green. Now, where the red is meeting the green is still very, very strong damaging winds, and it would be very uncomfortable to be on any of the bridges at this point as this is crossing the bay. But the tornado warned area does extend into South Tampa. So anywhere from the MacDill Air Force Base all the way up to Kennedy is where we're looking at the potential for a tornado warning. And the discussion also mentioned a second area of rotation a little bit further south than that they're keeping an eye on. And I'm not seeing much in terms of an interruption in the line for that either. And so we're continuing to watch this, but we're right now looking at a tornado warning for the Pinellas Park area stretching all the way across the bay over towards South Tampa and downtown Tampa. That's what we're looking at with the potential for those damaging wind gusts. It could be very loud at times, and so that's another indication that those damaging winds are getting closer to you if you do hear them picking up. This is not the time that you run to the window to take a photo or video, though. We want you to get away from the glass. Most injuries because of tornadoes are because of flying glass, and so that's why we tell you to get to an interior room in your home if you're in one of the areas that is warned. And bathrooms are a great option because they usually don't have windows and don't have glass and are usually within several walls. You're putting more walls between you and those damaging winds is what we're aiming to do when we tell you to stay safe from these systems. There are a lot of cameras in these areas. This is a very populated area. So I do expect that if a tornado is on the ground, we would be getting pictures of it. We would be hearing reports of it. And so that's one of the more interesting facts of how location of these systems is helping or hurting you in confirming if there was an actual tornado or not. If it's out in the middle of the woods, we're just looking for snapped trees. But when it's moving through areas that are very populated, we often get very good reports or images. I don't think we're going to get that from this line because we're still not seeing anything tighten up. We're not seeing any good signs of rotation within this. I think we're seeing some very damaging winds, but I'm not sure we're actually seeing the classic signs of a tornado on the ground. We talked about how the leading edge of these showers and thunderstorms is going to be where the strongest of the winds are. And so that's where we're going to see the damaging straight line winds in addition to the potential for tornadoes. And so the tornado warning it looks like it's still in effect. And it's stretching all the way through South Tampa into downtown Tampa, but that's about it. We're not seeing much in terms of rotation to the north of that. We're seeing very, very heavy rainfall and the potential for very strong wind gusts. Even outside of the storms today, we had wind gusts in the mid-40s in terms of the strength of the wind gusts. So now that the storms are actually moving through, we could see wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. The winds just over our area were closer to 80 miles per hour up in the upper levels of just above the surface, not the upper levels of the atmosphere. But that's where we're seeing on the radar right now the heaviest of the rain stretching down 41. It's probably extra measurable around the 275 I-4 exchange right now because this rainfall rate is blinding. And so that means people would see some ponding of water on the roadways in addition to low visibilities. And that's a recipe for disasters and car crashes, unfortunately, especially along the interstates, because look how fast you would go from just some light rain to some heavy rain if you were driving down I-4 right now towards Tampa. 275 really socked in with a lot more of that rain, but 75 is just seeing the light rain right now.
And you were mentioning before, Rebecca, that reports really help us. We're getting some reports in. You want to send us reports of severe weather? Send it to weather@wfla.com. I can tell you that we are getting some reports in. I have a report from Newport Richey right now. Tree was uprooted by strong winds near St. Lawrence and Little Road in Newport Richey. We've been seeing those wind gusts over 50, 60 miles an hour. There's some video coming in from Palm Harbor of a very strong storm there. So again, weather@wfla.com if you want to send us a report, and then we can relay that to our viewers. I want to thank the folks who sent in that information. So I want to take you for a little bit of a radar tour. Undoubtedly, if you're located right near the leading edge of this line, you want to know when the rain's moving in. Temple Terrace, right now. New Tampa, right now. Wesley Chapel, right now is when the heaviest rain's moving in. Following this line further south, it's about to move. Downtown Tampa's got some heavy rain, but the heaviest stuff is still over Town and Country and the mall, and not only the International Mall, but also the airport, right over Tampa International Airport. That is moving right over now 275 And the heaviest rain cuts right across the middle of the Howard Franklin and the middle of the Gandy Bridge as well. And this is all headed east fairly quickly. Going down into St. Petersburg, downtown St. Pete. Right now it's light rain, but within a minute it's going to become very heavy rain. And there's going to be some strong wind gusts as well with this. It extends down over St. Pete Beach and Gulfport. Love the city of Gulfport. And Terra Verde, you're about to be under the gun with the heaviest rain. It's about to cross over the Sunshine Skyway. As of now, I haven't had an indication as to whether or not the Skyway is closed. I would imagine the Skyway will be closed for a short period of time as this line crosses over. Let me put this back onto... Before I do that, I was going to put it back on velocity mode, but I want to show you where it is relative to Palmetto, Bradenton, and Anna Maria. Anna Maria, a couple minutes from now, the heaviest rain is going to move in. It's still a little ways away from places like Palmetto and Bradenton. Let me track the heaviest of the storms into that area and just give you an idea of when we expect it. We're expecting it at Holmes Beach at 437, Longboat Key at 447, Palmetto at 450, and Bradenton at 451. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go further north, do the same thing for this part of the line, which is really the strongest part of the line right now, extends from about Town and Country. Okay, new tornado warning for Pinellas County. It hasn't popped up on our map yet, but I think it's going to pop up in a second. So we're tracking that line of storms across Shore Acres. Armature Works at 432, Tampa at 434, Davis Islands at 435, and Mango. There it is. There's the new tornado warning that has popped up. Let me clear the screen for you. This is it. Okay, I see the kink. This one actually has a legitimate chance of being a tornado. Let me switch over to our base velocity and try to find it. There it is. It is as clear as day, folks. This is a very strong circulation. If we can come back to me on camera. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. All right. Let me query this for you. Right over Lakeview Avenue South, right near Culbreth Key. So just on the south side of downtown St. Petersburg, we're measuring winds that are 70 miles an hour, but it's not just what we measure, it's what we measure in one part of the storm, and then what we measure in another part of the storm, let's say right there, and we add them together. So there could be winds with this tornado somewhere between 90 miles an hour. And I am confident that this has a very good chance of putting out a tornado. It's about to cross over downtown St. Pete. In fact, I'm going to zoom in. There's the airport. There's Albert Whittard Airport. Would be a good idea, and we're going to check soon what kind of wind gusts they see at that airport, because this is going to come very close to the airport. I'm going to put a time lapse on this and show you where it was and where it's moving. And it's moving basically east-northeast at 45 miles an hour. It's going to be crossing over the bay soon. If you're in downtown St. Pete, anywhere near the airport, take cover right now. This is likely a tornado that is on the ground. And if it's not on the ground right now, it will be as soon as it moves over Tampa Bay when it starts to lose some of that friction. Remember, in downtown St. Pete, lots of buildings, lots of tall buildings. There it is. We just got the latest sweep of radar in. Let me pause this for you so I can show you where it is. And there it is. It's a little further east. It's to the south, way to the south of Tropicana Field. It's going to pass probably just on the south side of Albert Whittard Airport, and it's just as strong as it was before. Let me query it for you. There's a 66-mile-an-hour wind. Again, don't take these numbers at face value. It's likely much stronger than that, but this is what we're looking at in terms of the, at least being able to see the circulation and tell you where the possible tornado is. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I want to get an idea if there's any other chance of circulations other than that one, and there is one. There's one right here, which is located on the northeast side of Shore Acres. You can see on the south side of the Gandy Bridge, and this is headed towards McDill. Let me zoom out a little bit. And I mentioned it before, the Salt Shack. So the Salt Shack is located just on the south side of the Gandy Bridge. So that circulation is going to come very close to you. There's also Picnic Island, Dog Beach. That is a place where I brought my dog many times. So that's where this particular strong storm is. If you're located near that area, it's a fairly industrial area, but there are some residential neighborhoods there. Just be aware that this one also has a chance of producing a tornado. Getting back to the stronger signal on the radar here, it's right there. Let me switch the radar to another mode so you can see it more clearly. And there it is. Now about to move over the water in downtown St. Petersburg. I'm going to switch to reflectivity because sometimes we can see these hooks on reflectivity. And let me zoom out a little bit, and we'll put this in motion for you. All right. And again, if you see any kind of severe weather, and you can do so in a safe way, send us an email, weather@wfla.com. Rebecca is back there. She's checking email. I can check email right there myself.
Camera and pointed it that way.
Okay.
All you can see is rain at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's something that I'm going to need to load up. So let me load up the Marina Point camera.
They also have the tower camera pointed that way.
Yep, okay. So there's the Marina Point. Oh, that's not the Marina Point camera. Just give me a second to rotate around here, folks. We're going to go through our cameras.
Okay.
All right, our tower camera's up in downtown St. Pete. Go ahead, Rebecca, you take over, and then...
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, look at Crystal River's water.
Oh, wow.
You can see the water is now over some of the land there at the Plantation Resort there.
Yeah, and so we're looking at the Plantation at Crystal River camera. The high waters are going to be a problem along all of our coastlines. And so next up is Newport Richey on this tour to camera. Our International Plaza at Bay Street, we can't see anything at all because of the heavy rain. But this is the Marina Point camera, and so we're looking across the bay. This is right at the base of the Gandy Bridge on the Tampa side. And so we've pointed it towards St. Pete, towards the area that we're seeing that rotation on the radar. And this is all we're seeing. And this is one of the reasons that tornadoes are particularly deadly across the south. Many of them are wrapped in rain, and you can't see anything. You can't see them coming. There are several factors that go into the thought process that make tornadoes more deadly across the south than anywhere. One is we don't have basements. We don't have tornado warnings. We don't deal with them very often. But the second thought is that a lot of them do occur at night or are wrapped in rain.
Rebecca, that shear that's approaching MacDill Air Force Base is the strongest that I've seen so far today.
Yes, and so even when we were sampling some of the storms that are going on along the Panhandle and over our area, this is the strongest right here. That yellow is extreme shear. So this is the strongest of the winds moving on shore right at the base of the Gandy Bridge. And so areas like Marina Point, areas like Picnic Island Park, you've got, of course, the Publix over there, and it's going to basically go down Gandy Boulevard and probably leave some damage as it does so. We do have that one camera right there, but we can't see much as far as what is headed our way.
By the way, there's the strong winds moving in. Whether or not there's an actual tornado, it's tough to tell. But I'm going to zoom this in as far as I can over MacDill to give folks an idea of where the strongest winds are. And let me just query this for you, Rebecca, because I'm. Okay. So that's the strong. It's not 48 miles an hour. It's a lot stronger than that. But that's what the tool is pulling up.
Yes, and so it's better just to look at this with a more broad screen instead of getting hung up on the numbers. When you're seeing the more vibrant colors meeting the opposite more vibrant colors, that's where we've got the strongest winds. And the more vibrant the colors, the stronger the winds are that we're seeing. And so backing out to that second area of rotation that we saw that looked really defined over St. Pete, now it's moving out over the Gulf, and it doesn't look quite as defined or quite as tight, which is good. When it moves out over the water like this, it gives it an opportunity to be free from friction. There's no trees, there's no buildings that it has to battle against to get that rotation going. And so we did consider that there might be a chance for it to tighten up even further, but that's not what has happened so far. It's been out over the water for 2 radar sweeps now, and it's looking more broad instead of stronger. Now, just like Jeff said, even if it's not rotating, we're still looking at extremely strong winds that are very damaging. Straight line winds do the exact same amount of damage that rotating winds do, and so that is one of the factors that we're dealing with today. So the wind is starting to move onshore in South Tampa. It's moving down Gandy Boulevard. It's moved past West Shore at this point. It's probably closer to Manhattan right now, and it's going to continue to march down Gandy Boulevard, crossing Dale Mabry, crossing areas like South MacDill. And so this is a very populated area that we're looking at the worst of these winds. And
boy, that could very well be a tornado on the ground there. We don't have confirmation of that, but it would make sense. I mean, the winds have definitely gotten stronger. You can see the circulation has definitely tightened up there. So I just, want to put those roads on there so you can see exactly where it is. That's South Wall Street. That's South Lois Avenue. That's South Dale Mabry. This is down towards MacDill Air Force Base. So if you're located on the very southern tip of MacDill Air Force Base, right before you get over the Air Force Base, that's where the strongest winds are, A road. And it's moving northeast very quickly at 45 miles an hour. So if you're anywhere in the southern part of the peninsula, and I know Rebecca's very familiar with this area, this could very well be a developing tornado right now.
And it does appear that way. Even if it isn't a tornado, it appears that it's going to be very damaging line of winds. They did expire the tornado warning for that area. They did not reissue it, but this is where the damaging winds are moving. And so it's moving across South Tampa, especially along Gandy Boulevard and south of that all the way to the base. And so the crossroads, probably Euclid South is probably where we're seeing the worst of the winds right now, crossing over South Tampa. And Jeff is putting a tracker on it because it's moving at 40 miles per hour. And so over the MacDill Air Force Base right now, Gardenville by 446, Apollo Beach by 448, Brandon by 454, Bloomingdale by 550, Turkey Creek by 505, Walden Lakes by 506. At the same time, it reaches Beatty's Corner, Hopewell by 511, and Trapnell by 512. So this is a very fast-moving line of powerful winds. We have seen on again, off again, the potential for rotation within them. They've continued. Okay, the new tornado warning has been issued. I expect that will be for this area of rotation over South Tampa.
Central Hillsborough County. So let me take the tracker off. Within a second or two, you should see it appear, but it's got to be this cell. I mean, that is really wrapping up, Rebecca. I mean, there is going to be a tornado on the ground right on the north side of MacDill Air Force Base right now.
Yeah, that's, it's over my house.
I mean, we just got the latest scan in. And we can kind of show you the difference in wind. So 45 plus 38 is 80 miles an hour. It's going to be stronger than that. But clearly, you know, this, and we've been watching this as it moved off Tampa Bay, moved on to MacDill, gotten stronger. Now a tornado warning just issued from the National Weather Service. Sure enough, it is for this particular cell that we've been warning you about for the past 10 minutes or so. This is moving northeast, and it's going to be going back into Hillsborough Bay, so right over Hillsborough Bay. It's going to pass to the south of downtown Tampa, but barely to the south of downtown Tampa. You know, I'm gonna put a lapse on this. I want to see how close it's going to come to Davis Islands and to Harbor Island. It looks as though it's going to pass probably just south. Would you agree, Rebecca? Probably just south of Davis Islands, just south of Harbor Island.
Yes, I think it's not maybe clipping the southern portion at most. It is increasing still in intensity. We're seeing that classic tight signature right over West Bay and Himes, and it's going to continue out towards the Inner Bay Meat Market, out towards the Big Ray's Fish Camp. So these are the areas that we're talking about, these very damaging winds. There's a lot of trees in these neighborhoods. And so I'm afraid that we're going to see some tree damage. I'm afraid that we'll see some power outages. This is going to race off very quickly to the northeast. It shows Davis Islands on the northern edge of this right here, but
I should just tell everybody that I queried not just the tornado, but I queried the whole line of strong winds. So let's do that first, and then I'll go back and I'll query just the tornado itself, okay?
Okay, perfect. And so this is just the straight line winds. They're moving towards Davis Islands by 535, Gardenville by 443, Mango by 549, Seffner by 452, Brandon by it looks like 452 as well, Bloomingdale by 457. And then after that, it continues to work off towards Dover and Beatty Creek. And so now he's going to tighten up that track.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get closer because it's moving so fast. But what I'm going to do is, like you said, I'm just going to add this. Maybe this will work. Let's see. So it's moving. Man, is this flying? I mean, I barely get to the edge of the screen here. But anyway, okay, so that is where the tornado is moving. So those particular neighborhoods need to watch to see if this particular tornado maintains its tight circulation. So I'll give you an idea. Brandon at 4:55, just to give me an idea of what time it is. So that's 20 minutes from now. So again, this has to cross over the bay, North Hillsborough Bay, and then get back onto land. So we're tracking it into Brandon. I think it'll be faster than this, though, to be honest with you. Seffner at 4:58, Dover at 5:04, Turkey Creek at 5:06, Walden Lakes 5:07, Hopewell at 5:10, Plant City at 5:14, if it stays together that long. But you can clearly see where we're tracking this potential circulation, potential tornado just issued from the National Weather Service. Folks, if you want to send us a report of severe weather, again, it is invaluable information. We need it so we can alert everybody who's upwind of these storms as they move to the east. This tornado warning is in effect until 4:45. Let's see what they're saying specifically about it. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. So far, I haven't seen any reports of a tornado, but you can help us by sending us an email to weather@wfla.com. I'm checking my emails right now for any new emails that are coming in. And just to give you an idea of where it is right now, we should be getting a new scan in momentarily, but let's zoom in and show you where the latest scan has it, and that's basically on the very southern end of Bayshore Boulevard, where Bayshore Boulevard kind of ends at MacDill Air Force Base. And it's moving northeast. It's going to be moving right over North Hillsborough Bay, and then eventually landing somewhere in this neighborhood right here, which is the northwest side of Riverview, south of Ybor City. It's not going to be moving through Ybor City, and it is moving to the south of downtown Tampa, but it doesn't mean that downtown Tampa is not going to see those strong winds. You just won't see the actual tornado itself. Let me put a lapse on this and show you the direction it's moving. It's basically almost straight east, east-northeast. One thing I can say, the latest scan has just come in, and you notice that it's not quite as, the circulation's not as apparent. It's a little more linear or straight, which means that we may have lost whatever tornado there was for now. It doesn't mean it can't tighten up again. Sometimes these tornadoes will pulse. 1 minute, you'll see a tornado, the circulation tightens up. The next minute, the line takes over, and it's straight line winds, and then so on and so forth. It keeps happening over and over again. All right, I want to zoom out because that, at least that rotation has weakened just a little bit, and talk about where else we may have a potential, either strong winds or tornado that could develop. And so far, as I follow this line down to the south, see very strong winds moving into Longboat Key, but no necessary indications of tornadoes at this time yet. Yeah, just lots of strong winds, Rebecca, on this line, but no indications that there were tornadoes yet developing to the south. But you can see just how quickly we tracked one particular cell, me and you, for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then wham, it tightened up and became a tornado.
Exactly, and that's how the rest of probably the next 2 to 3 hours is going to go. We'll start to see slight indications of rotation, and then very fast development, pulse storms developing, pulse tornadoes spinning up. And I've gotten a couple of reports because the tornado passed, the radar indicated tornado passed over my house in South Tampa. The power is blinking on and off there, but it is back on at this point. I haven't gotten any damage reports yet, but we did have some power outages reported in Pasco County as well. And so we're going to continue to watch these areas. What we're seeing is this line of very powerful storms, gusty winds that are straight line, and the potential for some rotation as well. And so right now, Hillsborough County is still under a tornado warning, but Jeff has shown you how it's starting to fall apart a little bit on the radar, and so we don't expect that to be continued unless something else changes. The next rotation we're watching is offshore of Terra Verde, and so we'll have to see, it's well out over the bay right now. We'll have to see if it continues to hold together as it makes its way closer to the coastline. A lot of times when they form out over the bay, once they approach the coastline and start to interact with the coastline, it's very difficult for them to hold together once they start to see that chance they start to introduce friction into the equation. A lot of times that does weaken the system pretty quickly. And so this system's continuing to look more and more linear as it makes its way across the area, across the bay there, and back out over towards the Brandon and Riverview zones. And so I think it's just going to be very strong straight line winds once it hits the coastline just to the north of Apollo Beach there and moves just to the south of Brandon. So we still...
I'm just going to mention, we have a couple of reports coming in. I want to call out the folks who are giving us reports. Thank you so much. From Patricia Jackson. She told me that a tornado went over her house in Gulfport, and she showed the damaged pictures. We have damaged pictures. We'll try to turn them around and get them on the air for you at some point. But looking at these damaged pictures, it could have very well been a tornado. So again, that's Patricia, and she is from the Gulfport area. Gulfport, of course, in the very southern part of Pinellas County. Also, Nicole Oles said that she had a tornado in southern St. Petersburg around 8 minutes ago. Now, that was 3 minutes ago, so about 11 minutes ago, she had a tornado in South St. Pete. Well, we saw that on the radar, and there was a tornado warning that was issued for that. I believe there might have been even one other report that came in, and it's from a woman named Tina Martin. Thank you, Tina. Happy to say we survived a tornado with limited damage, but you didn't say, Tina, where you live. So if you can, email me back. Let me know where you live so I can tell people where the tornado was. So again, these are really helping out. No tornado in Holiday. No, Tina Martin says no sighting of it, but she was in Holiday. And there's other information coming in from Boca Ciega Bay and St. Pete of just how high the water is. And I can tell you in Clearwater Beach, I just looked at it, tides are about 3 feet above where they should be. So that's how much storm surge we're looking at, Rebecca. So it seemed to be some unconfirmed reports of actual tornadoes that have touched down in the Bay Area. And I'm not going to argue with those given what we saw on the radar in St. Pete and in McDill.
Yes, and so we have some power outage reports. In Pinellas County, they're reporting about 9,000 power outages, and then TECO is reporting about 6,000 power outages. And that was to be expected with the level of winds that we saw today, because even outside of the tornadoes and the tornado warnings, we saw gusts of wind upwards of 60 miles per hour within some of these storms. And so that line is approaching Palmetto and Bradenton right now. Longboat Key is next. And so we're looking at the potential for blinding rainfall as well as those gusty winds, and the lightning isn't as much of a factor as it has been previously. And so now we're back up in Citrus County. That's where we're looking at some of the drier conditions where we had the storm sweep through earlier. Now we're back down south. And so what we're seeing, we're watching this rotation off of Terra Verde right now, and we're also watching Pinellas because there's still some really nasty storms exiting Pinellas Park and St. Pete there, crossing the bay. And here's that line of shear. So this is the line of winds that we talk about. And so it's very thin. It's an anemic line, but it's a very powerful line. And judging from the damage pictures, you guys are emailing us at weather@wfla.com, which we really appreciate. Once the storm passes, we love seeing what happened in your neighborhood so we can get a better idea of what happened. But this is the line that's producing all of those downed trees and limbs and making everyone's yard really messy. It's about to move through Brandon right now. It is a little stronger out over the Gulf than I expect it will be once it makes its way past 301. A lot of times the winds lose some of their intensity after they move from the Gulf and from the bay over land. It's the friction, it's losing that warm, moist air, which is a source of energy for them. And so we still have some areas of shear back out over Pinellas, but they're certainly not as strong as that initial line that's about to approach Ruskin right now on Apollo Beach. It's going to move into Riverview. It's already moving into Brandon there. It's going to cross 75, eventually cross Highway 301. I don't think it will be quite as intense as it crosses 301 and moves on. When we're taking a look at the velocity, now we're looking at wind going in one direction towards the radar and wind going in the other direction away from the radar. And what we're looking for along this line is little curves, because that is an indication of possible rotation. So that's what we'll continue to monitor with that line as it's marching. It gets a little trickier when you're close to the radar site, which is in Ruskin. It starts to look a little wonkier in terms of that, not that classic line of away from and towards. And so we will go through a transition as the line itself of wind crosses the radar there. But then once it gets on the other side of the radar site, we will get a better idea of where we're potentially seeing some of that rotation. And so looking back offshore, yeah.
Say, the tornado watch up north has been canceled in our northern counties. The tornado warning that you see right there, as you know, that's going to expire in about 2 minutes. And I have to tell the folks up in the control room as well that as of now, I don't see any circulations that look like they're going to be imminent tornado warnings. We could still see tornado warnings anywhere from now until around 7:30 tonight in our southeastern counties. But as of now, I see some strong gusty winds approaching the Skyway, moving over Anna Maria Island, Longboat Key, Terracea, Palmetto, but I don't see any signs that these are going to become tornadoes, at least imminently. Even as I look at the actual tornado warning, whatever was there, that circulation, that seems to be gone now. So we're probably going to be able to toss it back to just our normal coverage in just a couple of minutes. I want to mention what's happening here is we have a line of storms, which is linear, right? It's a straight line that is competing with individual cells, which are trying to rotate within that line. So what happens is when a storm gets strong enough, it's able to overcome the linear nature of the line and start to spin and produce a tornado. But then pretty quickly, the line says, no, I'm going to straighten you out, and it opens up the circulation, and all of a sudden we just have straight line winds, no tornado anymore. This is the dynamic that's going to play out for about the next 2-3 hours or so. I just got a 63-mile-an-hour wind gust from Gulfport as that storm moved through Gulfport. And again, an unconfirmed report from a resident there saying that there might have been a quick tornado there as well. And before I toss it back to the anchors at the desk, just want to say you can send us any information you want to at weather@wfla.com. Again, weather@wfla.com. Send us that info. We'll mention your name on the air. We'll get those pictures on the air and that video on the air, and we'll be able to relay what could be life-saving information to the people in the area right now. Right now, we have strong thunderstorms, nothing particularly severe, but we'll continue to monitor it closely. We're going to send it to break. We'll be back in just about 2 minutes.
Live on MaxDefender8.com, here's the Max Defender 8 Weather Team.